What are we talking about today, Keith?
We're talking about annuities.
Why are we talking about annuities?
We want to make sure it's right for you. I don't know.
We're talking about annuities. We were going to talk about some objective use cases of annuities, and we're going to give you some just basic definitions because the landscape gets very complex and very confusing. So we're going to cover the very, very basics of what is an annuity and a couple of different types of annuities, and then how financial advisors would use them in practice.
Pros and cons. All right, welcome back. I've got Mr. Anthony Ruffalo, Certified Financial Planner, with me again. Of course, my name is Keith Wilson, Financial Advisor. Like we said, we're going to talk about annuities. We're going to look at the basics. We're going to look at kind of the pros and cons, if it's right for you.
Go.
So, annuities can get a bad rap, but Social Security benefits, that's pretty much an annuity payment. So all an annuity is, it's a contract between you and an insurance company. And they're promising to pay you some sort of payment, however it is structured. Now that promise, that guarantee, they say, is only backed by the claims paying ability of the insurance company.
Correct.
But people get confused with annuities because there are different types. Some people will say, hey, my cousin had an annuity and it was horrible. What type did he have? Where was it? Where did it fit in with his financial picture? Pensions are also a form of an annuity.
Right. So I think the first place that people get confused is an annuity is associated with a series of payments, which is on the back end, which is a guaranteed series of payments, which can be a good thing. However, before you even get to the series of payments and what those numbers are and how they're calculated, it's important to understand why people use them during the accumulation phase. So there's the accumulation phase of the annuity, and then there's the payout phase of the annuity. And it's important to make that differentiation of where you are in that process, because that dictates to the advisor the use case and when they would be recommended, when they could be appropriate, and how the application works in reality, in practice.
And the first thing you got to look at is not all annuities are created equal.
Right. So
we got to break it down to there are different types.
Correct. So let's give them a couple of different types of annuities.
Let's go over these different types of annuities. And the first one is, to me, is the most simple. It's called the immediate annuity, or single premium immediate annuity. In the industry, we call it SPIA. And I've always thought SPIA kind of sounded like a fungus.
No.
I got SPIA.
SPIA.
I got SPIA.
I got nothing for you.
What type of annuity you got? I got a SPIA. Well, take some Absorbine Junior or something like that.
You like naming things.
I do. I love it. But all right, single premium immediate annuity, very simple. You're essentially saying, here's a lump sum of money, insurance company. I'm going to give it to you, and in return, you're going to promise me a series of payments. Now, those series of payments can be structured differently. The first one is the insurance company says, all right, I'm going to give you X number of dollars per month, per year, or however you want it, for the rest of your life. That sounds great. But you have no access to that money that you gave them. You're accepting that promise, and that promise is only backed by the claims paying ability of the company. Well, you could wonder if you did that. If you died the next year and you received, 1 year's worth of payments, sorry, that's it. So you could structure it differently. Say, I want lifetime income, but I want at least a period certain, like at least for 10 years. And if I died within those first 10 years, my beneficiary would get the rest of those payments. And you can make it 20 years. You could make it life with whatever. Or you could just say, I want a series of payments for 10 years, period.
Right.
That's it. Now, with each of those annuitization options, the check that you're going to receive is going to be different. That's an immediate annuity.
Next type of annuity is just a fixed annuity, plain old fixed annuity. So you give the insurance company a lump sum of money into a fixed annuity. Fixed means that the interest rate is fixed. It could be fixed for that 1 year of the contract, or it could vary from year to year, but there's no risk of investment loss because it is a fixed interest rate. The other piece of a annuity, which if you purchase an annuity in a non-qualified with non-retirement dollars or non-qualified dollars, is you get tax deferral in that annuity. So give me an example, like let's say you put $100,000 into a CD and it's getting 4%. Well, at the end of the year, that's $4,000 in interest. If you had that inside of a fixed annuity at 4%, that $4,000 in interest isn't going to show up in a 1099 and hit your tax return for that year because it is tax deferred.
As long as you didn't pull it out.
As long as you did not pull it out, it remains tax deferred. So a fixed annuity, lump sum, you get an interest rate. That's how you accumulate interest. You have tax deferral. And at some point in that contract, there is also the ability for you to annuitize it and turn it into the first thing that Keith talked about, the SPIA. You could turn it into a series of payments. And typically with any annuity, you're going to have a minimum holding period or a surrender period. So they come in all sorts of different flavors. There are some that have 0. They're 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, 10 year. And what that is that's the holding period that you have to have that annuity before it comes out of surrender. A surrender charge is a withdrawal penalty or a surrender charge for that.
If you
within those
liquidate it early.
Liquidate the entire annuity early. So, for example, if you had a 5-year annuity and you wanted to liquidate it in year 3, there would be a penalty. After year 5, there would be no penalty.
Kind of like a CD in that regard.
Kind of.
CDs are protected with FDIC insurance, whereas, again, I can't say it enough, when we use the word guarantee, we have to say, well, the guarantee is only as good as the claims paying ability
of the
that
insurance
company.
carrier.
Next one is now it gets a little more complicated.
Yeah.
Fixed indexed annuity. Fixed indexed annuity. So the fixed index annuities came out, probably late 80s, early 90s, and it's still an annuity, but instead of a fixed interest rate, you are participating into various types of indexes or indices. One most popular would be like an S&P 500. So there are all kinds of components here. There are caps, there are floors, there are participation rates. So not talking about any particular company or any particular index annuity, just trying to give you an example. So for example, let's say you put money into an annuity, a fixed index annuity, and it says, all right, we're gonna track your performance based on the S&P 500 index. And most simple one would be, on day 1 you put the money in, it's tracking the S&P 500. On your anniversary date of that annuity policy, if the S&P 500 went up 20% and you have a cap of, let's say, 7. So that's the most you would make in this example. So that's called a participation rate, or a cap rate, I should say. It tracks it. Now, wonder if the S&P 500 went negative. In this particular example, they say, hey, you don't lose. It didn't go down. You just earned 0% for that given year. That's called a cap rate. Some will say, hey, we're going to let you participate, 60% of what the S&P 500 did. So if the S&P 500 went up 10, you earned 6. If the S&P went down negative, again, that's the 0. So that's the attractive component of the index annuity.
You have a floor of 0 and then you have a cap, which is defined by the insurance company because they change the cap rates and they can change them year over year. And your cap is the maximum that you can earn within a contract year, not a calendar year. So it depends on when you open the contract. So, we all like to cite, financial advisors like to cite S&P 500 returns, typically on a calendar year basis. A calendar year basis is very different than your personal contract year basis. So there are little nuances to and they're called crediting strategies. And there are several different, again, depending on the carrier and the product, you could be indexed to the Russell 2000.
Yeah, and some of them have fixed interest that you could choose. But you got cap rates, you got participation rates. And like Anthony said, that's not always going to be the same. So I've seen them as low as a cap rate of maybe 3%. Maybe the S&P went up 20. Well, you're stuck at 3. Yeah, you have that bottom. But the same concept with a fixed annuity, there's surrender charges to it. So you're usually married to that contract for a specified number of years, maybe 6, 10 years. Now, when I say married, usually you can pull out 10% without incurring a penalty.
I've seen some a little higher, but again, you got to read the contracts. Got to know what you're getting yourself into.
But to me, this is one of the most confusing types of annuities because of all the moving parts and all the crediting strategies and so forth. But go in with eyes wide open.
Sure.
And know what you're getting into. How about variable annuity?
Okay, so variable annuity. So variable annuity refers to really how are you earning interest, or how are you earning money inside of the annuity? What's driving the potential appreciation of the contract? In a variable annuity, and there are two subsets to this, but in a variable annuity, you're going to most commonly have sub-accounts, and sub-accounts mimic that of mutual funds. So you can have actively managed or you can have passively managed, but you'll find things like your common, Fidelity mutual funds. There's sub-accounts that mimic the performance of mutual funds. There is no floor. So it's going to fluctuate with the market. So again, if you have a mutual fund that a sub-account that mimics a mutual fund, and that actively managed fund is up 28%, well, there's no cap. You can earn 28%. However, on the downside, if that mutual fund is down 28%, you can lose 28% in value. So the variable annuity is driven much like very similar to their market-based returns, market-based risk.
Yeah, I would be dismissed if I didn't include this about variable.
You mean remiss?
Did I? I'll be dismissed.
I'm going to dismiss you right now if you're not remiss.
All right, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention about the variable annuity a couple of things. There are fees and there are charges. So like Anthony said, they're essentially a bunch of mutual funds wrapped up in a zipper called a variable annuity. And when you look at, they call them sub-accounts, but they're essentially mutual funds. You may find some of the mutual funds or sub-accounts exactly what you could go purchase outside in a brokerage account. But the underlying fees are going to be a little higher.
They are. Yeah.
They're going to be a little higher on that particular sub-account. That's one. Number two, there's something called the mortality and expense charge.
M&E, baby.
M&E, mortality and expense charge, that the insurance company charges because there is some death benefit protection. Usually the standard death benefit protection is, hey, what you put into it minus what you took out would be your minimum death benefit if you died. For example, if you put in $100,000, you never took any money out, and the market goes down, now it's worth $80,000, you pass away, the standard benefit with most of these carriers, hey, you at least get that part that you put into it. And that's where that M&E charge comes in. So there's the M&E charge, there's underlying fees charge, and if you have, we're going to get into the riders next, because you can add certain things to a variable annuity. One of the most common would be an income rider. So an income rider is some sort of a guarantee. And again, when I say the word guarantee, it's only backed by the claims
insurance
paying ability of the insurance company. So let's talk about the variable annuity with an income rider. And there's so many flavors of income riders. Let's just give an example. This is not talking about any one particular carrier or anything like that, but just as an example, let's say an insurance company says, hey, you put in 100,000. We will guarantee that you can withdraw 6% of that 100,000 for the rest of your life, even if the variable annuity account value goes to zero. We'll still give you, in this example, that 6%. Also, if you defer that and you say, I want the income rider, but I don't want to take the income now. Some carriers, this is an example, might say, all right, you started with 100,000. If it goes up on the contract value to 110,000, then that would be locked in for your withdrawal. That's called a withdrawal benefit base. Then you could pull out 6% of that. So that's called a step up. So there are many flavors. That's the most simplistic one. That comes with a fee on top of the mortality and expense underlying.
So with a variable annuity, you could be upwards of 3% in annual contract fees, which I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it puts a drag on your actual performance on your cash value. So we're going to get into use cases of
why would somebody, well, I'll start out. Now that you kind of got the idea of what a basic or an immediate annuity is, fixed annuity, fixed index annuity, and variable annuity, why would somebody want one of those? We'll start with the immediate annuity, in my opinion. So somebody's looking for income right now with an immediate annuity. And remember I said, if you took a lifetime payout and you passed prematurely, that's it. No more payouts. But typically, the check is higher if you take that lifetime income. So one idea, this might be helpful. Let's say we got a single person, they're retired, no kids, they don't care about leaving any money to anyone, but they desperately need to supplement their income with Social Security. And maybe they have other pockets of money elsewhere that they would be able to use, but they just need a steady flow of income for the rest of their life, and they can structure it.
And I would also throw into that, and they have longevity in their family.
Yeah. So
they're in good health, and they expect they are going to live more than the median life expectancy.
So they calculate, okay, this is what I'm going to get each year. I put in X number of dollars. If I live, at what age would I recoup all that money that I gave, and then some? Because the insurance company's kind of betting you die prematurely. You're betting that you're going to outlive.
Right.
And you desperately seek to have that money. Now, one thing about these annuitizations or annuity payouts, it's typically that's it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't increase with inflation. Mm-hmm. Like Social Security, I said before, is a form of an annuity, but at least you get COLA, cost of living adjustments. So again, immediate annuity, really designed for somebody that I need a large check for the rest of my life. I don't care about leaving it to anyone.
All right, so let's talk about fixed annuities. So what would be an appropriate use? Where do we see them in application in a fixed annuity? So here's an example. Let's say you have somebody who's 65 years old. They've got lots of money in CDs. They're very risk averse. They've got pensions, Social Security, and they've got a lot of income that's hitting the bottom line. And they want tax deferral. So we're assuming there's CDs and non-qualified money. Let's just say you have $1 million in CDs at 4.5%. That's $45,000. That's getting kicked off in ordinary income that flows to the tax return, and that may start to affect your Medicare Part B premiums. That might, if you're if you're 62 to 65, that may affect your healthcare subsidy because it's raising your income. And you want tax deferral. So what you could do is take that million, put it into a fixed annuity, and that would create tax deferral. Now you're kicking the tax can down the road, which may cause another problem down the road, but it can get you could still potentially get the 4.5% in interest and then also deferred. And it also gets you it also buys you the ability to not be in the markets. So for people that are very risk averse, it's a great alternative to a CD or a treasury, and it gets you some tax deferral.
Kind of a con real quickly on the fixed annuity, because we don't want to portray everything as all good or all bad, because it takes a balance. The interest that you earn is tax deferred. But like Anthony says, you're kind of kicking the can down the road. At whatever point you pull the money out, then you pay the taxes on ordinary income tax rate. Also, if you pass away and it's all deferred, you never took any money out, and it's growing by that interest rate, your heirs, when they cash it out, will pay tax on their ordinary income tax rate. Compared with a brokerage account, investment account, at death, currently, as long as they don't change the tax law, it's stepped up in basis, so they would not pay tax, essentially, if they cash out on date of death. So pros and cons, but just be aware, in a fixed annuity, yes, it's deferred, but eventually when taxes come out, it's paid at ordinary income tax rate.
Here's the exercise, and our job as financial advisors is, if you're going to defer income, it is for, to what end? Who ultimately is going to pay the income tax? So maybe it's you're deferring that interest income for 5 years, because we know for some reason you're going to be in a lower bracket because you have some other things that aren't going to be accounted for, right? So you could wind up paying less in ordinary income in the future, or you could have your beneficiaries of that account. You don't intend on touching the account. You plan on leaving it behind. And we know that your beneficiaries, are married filing joint, and they're only in like a 10% or a 15% federal bracket. And they're the ones who are going to ultimately inherit the money. And you're in a 32% federal bracket. That's the job of the advisor, is to understand the uniqueness of your situation, your familial situation, and guide you and steward you through that process to get you the best possible solution. Not saying that an annuity is or is not appropriate. We're just trying to give you the pros and the counter arguments, to why they can be justified.
Why it may be a good idea, why it may not be a good idea.
Correct, yeah.
And like you said, everybody's going to be different.
Right, and something I come across working with executives is deferred compensation. So a lot of my executives will have deferred compensation that is paying them out from age 65 to 72, and then it eventually rolls off. Well, those deferred comps could be an extra $150,000 annually in ordinary income that's hitting their tax return. Well, if you've got this other non-retirement money, we know that in 5-7 years your deferred comp drops aren't going to be there. You're going to be paying less than you are now. So let's defer it.
All right. Why would somebody want a fixed indexed annuity? So the fixed indexed annuity, again, it's kind of in between a fixed annuity and a variable annuity. So you're capped at the top, but you have a floor of a 0. So some people say, well, look, I'm not a bull, I'm not a bear, but I'm a chicken.
Dad jokes for days.
I know. I want some of that upside potential.
But I'm a chicken.
That the market offers, like with an index annuity. Typically, not always, but the idea is they'll pay a little bit higher return than just a plain vanilla fixed annuity. That's the idea.
Right.
But typically, they don't have the potential of the variable annuity, so it's somewhere in between. So it's for that person that's still risk averse, but hey, I want that upside potential. And I like the idea of, hey, I'll accept a 0% return in a bad year versus where I would have gotten maybe 3 or 4% in the fixed rate. So they want those in between. They're risk averse, but still want potential.
You got it.
Why would somebody want a variable annuity?
Somebody would want a variable annuity who wants to participate in markets, is not necessarily risk averse, and who also needs tax deferral. All right, I'll give you another example. So here's another example in practice where you would use a variable annuity with an income rider would be to manage at retirement sequence of return risk, or to cover a known.
Well, before you go into it, sequence of returns risk, for those of you that don't know what that means is, you have a risk of retiring in the wrong year. Meaning, all right, you're going to retire and you're going to take money out of your portfolio for income from your investment accounts. But let's say in the year you retire, it's a bad year. We're having a bear market, and maybe you're pulling out 4 or 5% and your investments are going down 20%. That's hard to recover from.
Right.
So again, with a variable annuity income rider, that helps.
Right. I'll give you a good use case. So let's say you're 65 and you're getting ready to retire, and it's 2015, and Treasury rates are in the twos. So you still need to invest for 25, 30 years. You don't want to be out of the market, but you also want some type of income-based guarantee. So to manage sequence of return risk, which is the risk of retiring into a bear market in your first couple of years, which puts you at high risk of running out of money in retirement. To manage that, variable annuity carriers, they said, okay, we'll take your lump sum of money. We'll allow you to put it into a portfolio of funds that you select. You bear the investment risk on your cash value. But we'll also give you a minimum income benefit or a minimum annual withdrawal benefit. And at the time, back in 2015, those are around 6%. So that's much higher than what treasuries or what fixed annuities were paying at that time. So you have somebody, they say, okay, well, I'm going to roll over, we'll put $1 million in this thing. That's $60,000 in income. And at least we know that I have my million can go to 500, but I'm still going to get $60,000 each year for as long as I live, based on the claims paying ability of the insurance company. But you have that as a base way of managing sequence of return risk for income, not principal, but for income. So that's where in 2015, that's where financial advisors were using those years ago, and they looked much more attractive then because fixed interest rates were much lower. I think it's a little bit more challenging of an environment to justify the use of those now. Not that you couldn't use them,
but if you could get,
but there's more of an interest rate disparity.
Right. All right. So we talked about the types. We talked about the usage of them. I just want to make it clear we're neither saying they're good or bad, and this is not a recommendation of annuities. It takes planning, and it takes looking at all of the features, all of the charges, expenses, reading the prospectus.
They're very
make sure you understand.
These products are very complicated, and I think there's a reason why you can't just go buy one directly. You have to work through an intermediary, which is a financial advisor who really knows and understands the contracts. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of terrible ones that are out there. I've seen absolutely horrendous annuities that should be criminalized. And I've also seen some pretty fantastic annuities that are out there. And you can argue the use of an annuity.
But it gets me to the point of if you think it's right or you want to learn more about it, get with your financial advisor, financial planner. If you want to reach out to Anthony or myself, feel free to do so.
No, don't reach out to me.
Don't reach out to him. Just reach out to me. But understand all of it ranges with annuities from pretty simple, like a fixed annuity, pretty simple, immediate annuity, pretty simple. Then it gets more complex with the fixed index and the variable. But they have their place within a financial plan, and sometimes they don't fit at all.
Right.
It's just like a lot of products and strategies. Hope that helps about annuities and how they work and the best case usage. See you next week, Ruffalo?
Nope.
Nope, he's not coming back.
Not coming back.
I'll guarantee, based on Keith's claim paying ability, that he will be back. Take care. If you like what you're seeing so far, check out this next video. Subscribe to the channel. Lord willing, we'll see you next time.